panic mode. That's according to new reporting from my colleague Caitlin Collins, as he struggles to meet a Monday deadline to come up with nearly $500 million to cover the judgment against him in his New York fraud case. And just this morning, New York Attorney General Letitia James told a judge that he should ignore Trump's claim that he can't find an insurance company to help him pay. CNN's Kara Scannell joins me live from New York. Kara.
Yes, Anna. So this new filing from the New York Attorney General's office, they're saying to the judge that Trump is making this claim that he has, tried to get a bond underwritten by 30 underwriters, that it's nearly impossible to get done. They're saying that the judge should ignore it. It's essentially too late, they say, for him to make this argument. But the Attorney General's office says if they are going to consider it, they want the appeals court to ask some more questions. Essentially, they want to know what efforts Trump actually made to get a bond. What were the terms that were put forward? Trying to get to the bottom of, did Trump just not like the terms, or was he really unable to get it? They also urged the appeals court to discount the testimony of some of the insurance broker and Trump's legal officer who, had said that they made these efforts, that no one would underwrite the bond because they wouldn't underwrite it based on real estate. Trump's lawyers are saying that maybe Trump should try to pool and get a number of underwriters to come together to underwrite a $500 million bond. They also suggested that Trump should have put up some of his properties with the court to secure this judgment. But this is still, as the clock is ticking, the ball is in the hands of the appeals court panel. They have to decide if they're going to grant Trump's motion to either allow him to post a bond that's less than $500 million, or to say he doesn't have to post one until the appeal of this whole case plays out. The deadline for Trump to come up with the bond is Monday, and if he doesn't, that's when the New York Attorney General's office can begin to try to enforce this judgment. That means they can try to seize bank accounts, they can try to seize some properties, they can start taking steps to move forward to enforce this judgment. Dana?
Kara, thank you so much for that. I want to bring in Bill Cohan of Puck, who has reported extensively on this. Nice to see you, Bill. Let's start with what Kara was just talking about, that Trump's attorneys say that he's tried very hard to get a bond, and it's not possible. Can you break down why he couldn't get one?
Well, Dana, thank you for having me. He can't really get one because he's not a good credit risk, Dana. He hasn't been a good credit risk for a very long time. During the 90s, 6 or so of his companies went bankrupt, so that is something that annoys creditors across Wall Street who have long memories. And he's also been known to not pay contractors and subcontractors and lawyers, so people remember that. And so when he's seeking a bond for more than $500 million, the risk of him paying, of him losing his appeals or his judgment against him falls to those bond issuers, not to him. And then they'd have to go after him if they don't pay, if he doesn't pay them. So, they don't want to take that risk. Why should they? Why should anybody take that risk at the moment? He's proven himself to be a very risky credit risk.
Okay, so let's take getting a bond off the table then. And
Yes.
let's look at his assets, because that is another way that he can pay this $500 billion judgment. And some of the assets that we're talking about, and we'll give some of what we think are their worth, the Avenue of Americas, $500 million, 40 Wall Street, $270 million, California Street, which is in San Francisco, $125 million. Now, some of these he owns, some of these he has an investment in, so we can talk about that. And then also Mar-a-Lago, of course, $240 million, which I believe he owns outright. The Doral Golf Course, which he loves, $305 million, and the famous Trump Tower penthouse, which is apparently worth about $40 million. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, the two properties, the one on the Avenue of the Americas, the one in San Francisco, are owned by Vornado, a different company. He owns a minority stake in those. I don't think he's going to have much luck with that minority stake, using that as collateral for a bond. I think also those prices are probably pretty high for both of those that you put on the screen. In his deposition, as you'll remember, in April of last year, in this case, he said he had $400 million in cash and growing every day. That apparently doesn't seem to be the case, because if he had that kind of cash, he'd be using that as collateral. We're also talking about, a pretty distressed market for commercial real estate in Manhattan these days. And so, how quickly he can get the money if you have to sell these buildings. People would want to take advantage of that. It'd be a distressed sale. They'd try to take advantage. We also don't know how much leverage, how much debt is already on some of these buildings because, he's a private company. He doesn't have to disclose that, although some of that does get out. I think he has got debt and mortgages on all of these properties. So, what is the equity value of these things? That's another thing that, the bonders are going to look for. If you sum it all up, Dana, I'm thinking at this point he really isn't going to have much choice but to file for personal bankruptcy. And I know that's something he doesn't want to do, and it said he doesn't want to do, but it would stay this judgment. It would throw it all into bankruptcy court, and that would buy him the time that he so desperately needs in this situation.
You think that's the most likely scenario, that he files for bankruptcy? That would be a big deal for a presidential candidate of any kind, but particularly one who is running on his prowess as a business person.
Yes, of course, but I think he's the master spinner, right? So he'll be able to spin that if it happens. I'm sure he'll spin that in a way that will appeal to his backers.
No question.
But I don't really see that he has any other choice at this point. I don't see who's going to give him this money.
Let me just ask you about that before I let you go, because it is, I guess, possible for him to get money from an outside investor or backer. He could get it from another billionaire that's more liquid. He could potentially get it from a foreign national, but then that, of course, brings in other problems when it comes to his presidential campaign and campaign finance laws.
Right, and I think even if he were to get the money from another billionaire who would be, a bit crazy to do it, but it could happen, that might run afoul of federal election laws as well. That would be a very big donation to a presidential candidate.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to take that off the list. Thanks for breaking it down. Appreciate it, Bill.
Thank you.
Okay.